Chapter 2. Energy and Power. As it has been stated, reality is of a dual yet undivided nature. The manifest and the unmanifest. These realities are the being and the force, that is, the principle of existence and its inherent quality. Force is again divided into two categories, energy and power. These two are very closely related in their nature and manifestation, yet they also have subtle differences. Both of them have their origin in the prime force. From her all other forces emanate, and they are by nature only limitations of the highest force. This force is reflected in each dreamer, and her energy and power drives the engine of their dreams. Energy is the fuel of activity. It controls the speed and breadth of the mind. It is the feeling of well-being and happiness. Energy is required for every endeavor, from drawing a breath to building a world. It is both a material and a currency. There is no realm in which energy is not valued or used by every inhabitant. In the highest realms, it is used to jump, to build, to play, and to start carriers. On the earthly worlds, it is used to toil, to enjoy, to strive, and to fuel infrastructure. In the lower worlds, it is used to torment, to connive, to humiliate, and to torture. Different beings have different capacities and economies of energy according to their standing in the creation. A typical human sleeper would reach the ceiling of his energy by receiving only a fraction of the energy of an endless. Capacity is like a rail network, and it defines the workings and limits of one's power and energy. The lines of this network dictate the extent that one's energy may travel through the subtle body, whilst its organization dictates what can and cannot be done, that is, the power. Capacity is a function of one's illumination. To increase the capacity, illumination must push the network beyond its limits. New lines will need to be laid, and the network will need to be reorganized. Energy can be gained in a few ways. The first of which is by working for others. The scale of the service given is proportional to the energy gained. Another is by eating food, although this is more relevant for the temporary realms. The final means to acquire energy is worship. Worship of an individual transfers energy to the worshipped in proportion to the sincerity and energy of the worshipper. Being worshipped by one man may give a small boost to another man, whereas if the same man had a destroyer fall at his feet, he may become overwhelmed with energy. Whilst the higher beings have a greater capacity for energy, they also gain far more because of the immense service that they provide for others. For example, a powerful creator may build worlds simply for the enjoyment of others, and by doing so gain enormous quantities of energy. Yet even with such a standing, he will still take a terrestrial year on average to reach his full capacity. Energy can be shared. It can be moved from one person to another, and it never settles anywhere for long. Because of this, and how it is most commonly gained through service, there exists a thriving energy economy in the higher realms. After money, energy is the most valuable commodity. In the temporary worlds, energy is not well understood, and it is left to the wisdom of the individual how he manages the energy he needs to function and do his work. In the place where everyone has to go, this is not the case. In that world, it is well known that energy can be given by asking for it from others. Just a tap with conviction is enough to transfer energy to someone else. Energy can also be taken from others by holding onto the subtle body, particularly by holding the feet. There are many reasons to ask another for energy, or to be charitable and to give energy. But the most embarrassing example is begging for snacks. Snacks is the term used in the perfect world for small gifts of energy, usually given by beings who are not very powerful. Take this situation, for example. A highly energetic and powerful creator arrives at a great event on his mighty palatial carrier. The energy required just to start it is enormous. He settles and powers down his aerial mansion. Events transpire such that he loses nearly all of his energy. He can't even start his carrier to leave. He is stranded. He may have enough energy to jump home, but he daren't leave his giant carrier out of sheer pride. If he did, he would have to make many return trips just to fill it up. In this case, he must go around the audience of the event and beg them for snacks, and for such a grand being, there would be nothing more humiliating. Often one being will go to another and say, "I am going to go and do so-and-so work. Can you spare me some energy?" And obligingly they would tap the person with a generous amount of energy, and he would be on his way. Power and energy are very similar in nature to one another. Whilst energy controls the functioning of systems, whether it is a body, a carrier, or a realm, power is the ability to function. Power controls what can and cannot be done by the dreamer, and is the feeling of ability or strength. Even with the energy of an endless, one without power cannot even build a pencil. Great ability requires great power behind it for it to be operated. With power, what is said comes to pass, what is willed is done, and what is desired is received, all without obstruction. As with energy, all power proceeds from the prime force and is reflected in each dreamer. What is done by her power alone. Unlike energy, power cannot be gained by doing service for others. Rather, the first means to acquire power is by enduring strife. Bearing pain in the mind or body gives one power relative to that strife. The second means to acquire power is the one consciousness. Utilizing the one consciousness with sincere and unwavering conviction draws power from its source and places it in the hands of the dreamer. The third means of acquiring power is through worship. In this respect, this aspect of force operates in the same manner as energy. The worshipper transfers power to the worshipped. The mechanics are the same in regard to the consumption of food, for food material is a storehouse of both power and energy. There are curious laws that apply to both power and energy. The first is that when two dreamers or a program and a dreamer interact, the greater naturally absorbs the force of the lesser. That is, whilst the interaction is going on, the more powerful party will gain the energy and power of the lesser without effort. The interaction of two dreamers also draws out the latent energy of each, such that one rises higher and higher the closer the two dreamers get. It is also the case that the greater can control the lesser through his superior power, be it increasing or decreasing energy at will, changing the contents of the other's room, and so forth. In situation where there is a large disparity between the two, the lesser may come away markedly drained, whilst the greater may be almost unaffected by their interaction. The movement of energy and power throughout the net of being is constant and organic in its flow, like rivers flowing past whirlpools and onto the ocean. The subtle body reflects the force within. One's capacity and internal network, as it were, can be read upon the face. Energy, being happiness, molds the form, beautifies it, and is itself beautiful to behold. Likewise, power strengthens the body and resembles its own nature, such that an incredible powerful being will appear like a pillar among his peers. The greatest means of gaining both energy and power that I have not yet spoken of is receiving it straight from the source, from the goddess. The mother has direct control over force, being superior to all, and herself not being different from all force in reality. Thus, it follows that any desiring force, either in its form as energy or as power, ought to go to her to get it. She is not in want of either, and can give and take as much as she desires, without respect to the laws that apply to force, or other conditions affecting her child. Yet not to be given it per force, but to be worshipped by the goddess herself, and by this means acquiring one's force, this is truly the highest.